When we did some amazing bakes, it was like the fire was perfect, the temperature was perfect, the equalized heat was perfect, and the dough was perfect, and bringing it all together to create that magic. It's just so rewarding, and you're up so early, and by the time everyone else is waking up, you've already achieved so much.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Finding your calling in life doesn't come to everyone, but for some, there are key moments that capture the imagination and set you off on a journey far more fulfilling than perhaps you may have anticipated. Today's guest has created her dream food store where fermentation and fire are at the heart of everything she does. Kimmy Gastmeier is the owner and creator of Cherry Moon in Sydney's Annandale. Kimmy, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to get you on the show. I haven't seen you for many, many years. Lots changed over those years. How are you?
Yeah, I'm going really well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's really good to get you on. You've got an establishment there in Sydney that has a lot of love from the hospo community. Everyone talks a lot of positive things about Cherry Moon. Tell us a little bit about it and how are things going there?
Yes, going really well. We're 5.5 years in to the journey of Cherry Moon. It was a real wild ride to create it. I started cooking when I was 16 in New Zealand and moved over here when I was 18. And over 10 years in Sydney in some amazing restaurants. I found bread and just fell in love with the wild fermentation and fire, and just all my friends at the time were head chefs of places or opening places, and I just didn't feel that was where I wanted to go. And then, when I took some time out and really connected with nature, I just felt a real calling, and was really excited to either bring back an old oven or build my own. And then, once I got a bit of momentum with all of that, it was, it felt like a dream and a miracle, and like there's so many challenges, and it almost didn't happen. And it was a real wild ride.
Well, there's so many layers to all of those things that you just sort of mentioned, which I'm going to dive into. But I'll just want to touch on that bit because you've got such amazing credentials working at sort of Rockpool and Tetsuya and with Luke Powell and all, amazing restaurants. But that moment with the bread, tell me about sort of when you discovered that and who you were working with and what happened.
So Mike McInerney was my head chef at Rockpool. I was 18 there. And he was just such a huge influence on me in my whole career. I hear his voice in the back of my mind a lot. He had such a way of connecting and really training people on a very heartfelt level. And he really reached me where it was past just cooking and being in a kitchen. It was on a heartfelt level where I felt a real connection with food and building flavour. And I remember him saying to me, you'll know you're a good chef when you go to the markets and the food tells you what to do with it. And I just loved working for him. And when he went to open his own place, Kitchen by Mike, I was really keen to come on board with him. And that's when he said, you're going to be on pastry. And to be honest, I didn't want to do pastry. In all the fine dining kitchens, pastry was not really, like in New Zealand, if you're on larder, you do a bit of pastry. And I loved that. I had an understanding for it all, but I wanted to keep working my way up the ranks. And I guess I was quite competitive and with all the boys in the kitchen and wanted to push on. But he just said to me, if you learn this pastry section, you're going to be making bread and cooking with the fire. And it was just one of those moments when, like, the first few days were very challenging. I wasn't wired that way. Like, I hadn't done anything with bread before. It was quite daunting and overwhelming. But once just the way he taught and connected and nurtured the learning process was so inspiring, and just it's so rewarding because it's like the bread's trying to do its own thing and it's a wild fermentation, and the fire's doing its own thing, and like you're the powerhouse to nurture it, to like the alchemy to come together and create. So when we did it some amazing bakes, it was like the fire was perfect, the temperature was perfect, the equalized heat was perfect, and the dough was perfect, and bringing it all together to create that magic. It's just so rewarding, and you're up so early, and by the time everyone else is waking up, you've already achieved so much. It's just a real mind-blowing experience for me, and I just chased it. And then every kitchen I went into, I was making bread and trialing different types of wheat and malt and different ovens, and yeah, so it really sent me on my way. And I think I felt a real sense of relief, because I just didn't, I was 16 and put myself in that kitchen world, and I was thriving in there, but like after 10 years I was quite burnt out. I didn't know where it was going to go, and where, when I found bread and just fell in love with it, it was like, it felt part of my life. It wasn't a job. It was like this passion, and I just rolled with it. I was riding a motorbike and living in the Blue Mountains for a while, carrying the bags of flour on the back and just baking in as many ovens I could get my hands on. And I had a smoker built out of two 44-gallon drums, a fire pit in my backyard, and built an oven on a trailer out of mud brick. And then there were lots of ovens in the mountains. Like, people would invite me to their house to use the ovens, or I was just going for it, and really really dreamed about building my own one day. And so then it set me on a mission and I was very lucky to meet people that believed in my dream and helped back it to make it happen.
Before we dive into that dream and the amazing cherry moon that you've created, tell us a little about wild fermentation and trying to work with that and harness the best out of it. Like, do you have some sort of triumphs and failures and that you can tell us about with trying to work with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I got good at making bread by making lots of mistakes. There was lots of times where, I was helping out in other people's kitchens and not working there full time, but just nurturing them. And sometimes if a failure happened, they'd just want to throw it in the bin, and you can see the devastation. I remember my first time, I thought I'd taken the bread out of the oven. I was under so much pressure. I had lots going on, and then I realised I hadn't, and opened the door and it was all like burnt. And like, Mike said to me, Kimmy, I know you are hurting so much right now. I know that you are beating yourself up more then I don't need to say anything to you. And like, it was just the shittest fucking moment. But, like when every time there's a mistake, if you actually get your lesson from it, then it creates information for you to draw from when, it just keeps pushing the parameters, like cutting open a loaf that might not have cut, like might be a bit flat or, all these different things. You can get information from actually pulling it apart and looking at, okay, maybe it was the hydration or the oven didn't have enough heat, so it didn't give it enough push to open up all the bubbles and, like the scoring, there's so much in it. So I love it. It keeps you right on your toes and you're living on the edge. And yeah, like there's, you only really get one chance as well, because if the fermentation goes too far, your bread starts to decline and drop all the fermentation you've created. So timing is very important and being very in tune. So it's a very sensitive craft, and I love that feeling of being right on the edge and riding that wave and striving for that perfection.
Are there some sort of telltale signs visually or feeling with the dough when it's fermenting that you know that it's ready for the next stage? Or is there some cues that you've sort of mastered over the years?
Oh, wow. Hey, Mike, there's so much acknowledgement and gratitude for my time spent with him. He said to me when I was at Rockpool, every step of the way must be perfect. Don't move on to the next step until that's perfect. So I've had that in the back of my mind in all cooking, especially bread. So, if you're on the clock and just trying to go, okay, 30 minutes, everything's so down to controlling by the mind and just rigid, then you lose the essence of it. It is a living wild thing, and you need to pay attention to the sensitivities of it. So we think about the weather, we think about the temperature of water we're working with, and our environment. We're shaping all our bread right next to a hot burning wood fire oven. So, we've every environment I've made bread in, I always adjust things according to the space. So yeah, every step of the way, I've got lots of little checkpoints that I teach my team just to keep that consistency, and they've never let me down. And I don't change heaps of things all in one go, because I want to be able to pinpoint what that change has actually contributed to either improving or failing. Yeah.
You mentioned a part of this journey into bread for you was burnout in the industry. It's a very common thing in hospitality. How did you recognize sort of where you were at, and how did you overcome that burnout?
I'm still on a massive journey with my health. It's been very confronting for me. I think I have a lot of energy, and since being a chef, it's been a really positive way for me to channel that. I think when I was younger, it's like, I didn't fit in at the school environment. It's kind of labelled ADD or dyslexic. But the second I found myself in a kitchen, I just thrived. I had the energy and the momentum for it. I think I was very lucky. I was surrounded by people like Mike and Joel Humphreys, Luke Powell, Jeff Claudio, the whole crew that I worked with at Rockpool. We're still all very good friends, but it was just riding that flow and that momentum and all the challenges. But it did get to a point where I was pushing my body. There's the mental challenge in the kitchen to get through the service and be constantly learning. But I guess I lacked really looking after my health and diet and sleep and navigating all of that. So, and just holding a lot of stress in your body. So I've been on a big journey. There was a period where I couldn't eat a lot of foods: meat, wheat, dairy, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, stuff like that. And that's when I moved up to the mountains, and I thought, what the fuck is the point of being a chef now? I can't. And it was very confronting. And I was seeing a naturopath at the time, and they just said, if you keep going with the lifestyle that you're living now, you're going to, get this some autoimmune disease and stuff like that. And so I took it seriously. I started getting fresh spring water in the mountains. I was making all my own food, conscious of where I was sourcing it, really steering, because you're just spending so much time in the kitchen preparing food for others. I was really neglecting my own well-being. I guess the time I was at Tetsuya's was such an incredible time in my career. It was 1.5 years, I think, but I was just every single time I learned something, I was moved to a next section and the next section. I just thrived and strived and worked very closely with Tets. And I kind of hold it very close to my heart that time, but I also felt like I'd kind of sold my soul a little bit in terms of not filling my cup in any other way. It was just so serious. And my time at Rockpool as well was just, I think, the driving force for me in my younger, that first 10 years in my career. There was a lot of stuff that had happened in my childhood that probably drove me to push that hard. And, in the later years, I've been able to pull that apart and have a look and really see that that hasn't been the best for my health. And so it's pushed me on a journey to really, and that's kind of how Cherry Moon was created, through thinking of a wholesome approach to cooking and very nourishing and, wanting to offer that feeling of beautifully cooked food, baked goods, bread, but as wholesome as it possibly can be. So we're using really good quality flour and ingredients and consciously source stuff as much as we can get from Australia and know the suppliers. So we have that integrity in what we do there.
A part of sort of the path to Cherry Moon was you taking off to the Northern Territory for a period of time as well. Tell us about that trip and what you got out of it.
So I was actually at a point of kind of surrendering to my dream. I thought I'd been pushing for 4 years to try and make this happen, and researching about Alan Scott wood fire ovens and or finding sites to try and bring back an old oven, and everything just kept on hitting a roadblock and falling through. And I'd from my first paycheck brought bric-a-brac that I dreamed about having my own shop one day, and just this sort of certain feel that I wanted to create, and it was like I was always striving for that. And then when I left Sydney and I wasn't on a salary anymore, and I had to I did a little pop-up called Cherry Moon pop-up outside the co-op, and that would pay my rent and buy the ingredients to do the next pop-up and stuff. And so I was doing that and really harnessing my vision and trialing and practicing wood firing and the recipes. And while I lived up there, because I had so much more space and time and made amazing friends, I really started to learn about native bush foods and feeling a real connection with the land. And so I felt very drawn to going to the Northern Territory. And I'd planned that trip, but I actually had a point in the mountains where I just knew it was time to leave. I'd been there for 4 years. I felt very drawn to going there. And then suddenly it was just time to go. And so I went back to New Zealand, and I was literally thinking, man, if my creativity's got nowhere to go, I may as well just get a job in the supermarket. I was so gutted. And luckily I already had that trip planned with my cousin for the Northern Territory, because I was feeling quite depressed, not feeling like a sense of purpose, and feeling I'd worked so hard and not knowing where it was going to go. And luckily when I was in New Zealand, because I thought that feeling with the land was just special to me and the Blue Mountains, I didn't realise I could go anywhere and feel that kind of connection. And so when I was in New Zealand, I ended up helping a friend. She was doing an event for Matariki, which is the Māori New Year. And the Māori culture is just so alive in New Zealand. It's so inspiring. And they were all doing the hangis, cooking under the ground. And I got to be a part of that and felt really reconnected with my roots back home. And then when I got to the Northern Territory after that trip, I had no plans. I had no idea where I would go and what I would do. I had just seen the site where Cherry Moon is, and before I left, and I was thinking, okay, I don't know if I want to be back in Sydney, but if there's an opportunity to build an oven here, and it was such an amazing opportunity that if I can still go on this trip and come back and start Cherry Moon here, then I'll do it. And they agreed, my backers agreed to, I could still go on that trip and would look into building this oven. And the first day I arrived in the Northern Territory, so I was in Uluru with my cousin for a while, and that was really inspiring. And then she left and I got a bus to Alice Springs, and the day I arrived in Alice Springs, I met the custodian of Alice Springs, and he's teaching me about their way, and it's just chance. And then I spent a bit of time at the botanical gardens. I just felt really inspired with the land, and just felt so much creativity just flow through me, and everywhere I went, an opportunity just unfolded. I just was going with the flow, because my grandmother and also my uncle went travelling through the Northern Territory. So they've both passed away, but I grew up with seeing all their photos in the house of that trip, and just the red soil and all the adventure. And I really wanted to follow that. And so I looked through my grandma's diary and where she travelled through Alice Springs, and it just kind of like I was following that. But then everywhere I went, I just met the right people at the right time. And the chef at the botanical gardens, we hung out one day, and he took me to a farm called the Happy Farm, and then got talking to them. They're growing all these veggies in the desert, but surrounded by bush food. Not that that's what they were focusing on. And so I stayed there I thought I'd stay for a couple of days or a week, and I was there for 6 weeks helping on their farm. It was like extreme heat. We're up really early in the morning to help harvest a whole lot of things they were growing. And then in my free time, I got to explore Alice Springs and the McDonald Ranges. And like, I just felt the land was really talking to me. It was a very magical time. And I felt full of so much creativity. And when I came back to Cherry Moon, I just poured it all into that. But yeah, it wasn't what I thought it was, because that was the magic fairy tale side of it, you know, opening a business and 6 months later, COVID, and then having a baby and all that was a real shock to the system.
You briefly mentioned Alan Scott wood ovens. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's so important to what you do.
So when I was baking with Mike, we were using a gas-fueled oven. So that was like a very intro to ovens for me. And he talked about an Alan Scott oven and showed me what he'd built when he was back in Wales, and explained to me about like it, just like the way he was talking about it really resonated, and I was able to picture like this equalized heat and it trenching into the concrete and the vermiculite and the bricks, and like just this like really amazing. So we're replicating that in this gas oven, but every single oven I baked in after with Mike was and like just expanding out the possibilities and the journey. Like I baked in one oven at Nomad, and their fire burning chamber was under. You burnt the fire under, and the floor, all the heat was coming up through this little like chamber in the middle. So like you had to adjust and bake very differently and really let the heat equalize. Otherwise, all the bread that's around that chamber would just burn. And it just like every single experience baking in different ovens, even if it was someone's home kit oven, like I just learned, and it was just gaining more understanding. And so there was one oven in the Blue Mountains in Katoomba. It was the Niagara, old Niagara building. It was pellet dining when I was using their oven. It's not there anymore, but the lady that ran that place, Patrina, she was just such a beautiful woman and really understood, you know, what I was wanting to do, and backed me to let me use her space after they had finished at night. And so there was still a bit of heat in their oven, but I just practiced that technique where you would burn a fire, drench the heat in the oven, and then you would let it like settle and equalize, and then scrape out all the coals and then bake. So I just started practicing the Alan Scott style of baking, even though that oven wasn't an Alan Scott. And then was on a mission to track down the plans for an Alan Scott oven. There was a lot of roadblocks, but and then track down someone that could actually build an Alan Scott oven. So yeah, it was about like 4 years of researching and trying to track down someone. And like the premise that Cherry Moon's in, it was about 6 months in and still hadn't found the right builder. I remember the landlord sending in all these guys going, oh, this guy's an oven builder. His name's Mario. It's perfect, you know? And he's showing me these thin tiles, and I'm like, fuck, like for fire bricks. And I'm like, no, this is not going to... And it got to the point where the landlord's about to pull the pin. If the oven builder doesn't turn up in the next week, like we're not doing it anymore. And I was like thinking I'm going to have to compromise and import a couple of Italian ovens, and that's not my dream, and what am I going to do? Like, I was staying on my friend's couch, had nothing, living off the skin of my teeth with my little motorbike, and you know, just high from these amazing connections with nature, but not knowing, you know, really it was a real miracle. Then an amazing guy turned up. I'd been in touch with him for a while, but wasn't sure if he was going to build it. And then he turned up that week, and him and his partner agreed to come and build. And it took us 3 weeks. We had a few other labourers help us. And it was just such an incredible experience to get my hands in there. And yeah, and
Tell us about that feeling that you had and what it was like actually building it.
It was amazing because I had built another oven, a mud brick one, in the past, and we kind of did it as a workshop so other people could get their hands in there, like to fund that build. And the oven didn't really work. You know, it wasn't. I mean, it was very heavy, and it was a very different style. It didn't hold heat the way that you know this oven I don't know, everything about it just felt really beautiful, like spending the time with Dennis. And I just felt like we were in really good hands. I just had to roll with it, support him the best I could because he was 75 at the time. And I was just very excited. He was so excited as well. I was learning so much. And like my dad's a mechanic. So when I was growing up, I was used to, getting my hands dirty. I'd help him down at the shop a lot. And he would always like teach me, like, he loves motorbikes. So it would always be like, Kimmy, look at this piston and look, this is what it does if you do this. And he's always trying to fine tune everything to like basically run on air. So I had that patience and I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty, and I was just really excited. It felt like a dream coming true. And when we fired up the oven, it's like, and still to this day, it's like the Rolls Royce of an oven, because I've baked in so many ovens that have never had this kind of power, not power, but, there's 3 layers of insulation. We've got this beautiful door on the oven. It's from 1869 from an old bakery in Ballarat. We got it off Gumtree, and Dennis was excited about that too. So we altered we put that door in instead of the original Alan Scott door. And so it was a real miracle. It's incredible that shop is there, to be honest. Yeah.
The vision that you had for Cherry Moon, when you first opened, was that sort of the vision, or has it evolved into what, tell us a little bit about sort of when you first opened and what it's evolved into.
So I think I was 30 when I opened it. I had so much energy. I'd had, all this time out in nature and really recharged and inspired. I wanted to give it my all, after working for Tets and Rockpool and seeing, you're military trained to push on. And I wanted to birth all of my creativity. And I think the biggest shock I kind of got was, managing people. The business was way bigger than I ever thought it would be. I thought we'd have 4 or 5 people working in there, and we've got 20 staff now. So there's been a huge journey of learning to manage people. That wasn't a strong, you can obviously tell I'm very passionate about what I do, but I hadn't had that experience in management, and there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of learning and a lot of lessons in that. But when I first created Cherry Moon, I wanted to give it my all. So the concept was a bakery. And you can come in and you can see the oven, and we didn't even have a mixer at that point. Like, we were hand mixing. If the business started to generate some revenue, then my backers were like, yeah, well, we'll get a mixer, but until then, let's just, the oven cost a shitload. So anyway, we're hand mixing in this beautiful European bread trough, and the aesthetics of it were incredible, but the physicality of it wasn't very realistic. We got a mixer a few weeks later, and then we were doing, I wanted the concept to be, you can come and buy your general store goods. Like, we've got lots of jarred things and stuff for retail, and you can come grab your loaf of bread and milk and stuff. But I also wanted it to be a space where you could sit down and have our sliced up bread on toast with beautiful condiments, and so there was like an a la carte element to it, and then there was all the baked goods as well, and coffee. So it was like the dial was really turned up, and then 6 months in, COVID hit, so we adjusted the concept to just bakery and takeaway, which was a relief, to be honest, because I think I was very challenged with handling it. I'm very creative, but it started to become like 10% creativity and like 90% managing the whole operation and the people and, the team. It was pretty challenging for me. And then with COVID, it was, then we started to generate some revenue with because it was a big wake up call for me, the looking at all the numbers and how much work you're putting in, but what that really generates revenue wise and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a shock to the system.
And how is Cherry Moon these days? How do you describe it to people, and where are you at with the business?
So I think like after adjusting with the few years of COVID, and then I fell pregnant and had a baby in that time. It's been a real journey for me to navigate running my business and motherhood. So I'm actually at a point now where I'm really just enjoying all the hard work that's gone into it, and just being with what I've created, and not pushing more and more and more. It's like the opportunities keep coming my way, and if it feels right, like to do a collaboration or to like I think I recently did a whole lot of maintenance on our oven, and it just reignited that passion that I have for keeping these ovens alive in this craft. And I would love to build another oven. I think that really makes my heart sing. And Dennis is even older now, 81. So I think his story is just incredible, and I want to. I guess I want to actually work on some. I'm not exactly sure how it will all unfold, but just staying open to being in the moment with what we're doing and seeing where it will take me, and just staying connected with like-minded people. And I think his his legacy would be amazing if that got told. He's got all of Alan Scott's archives. Alan Scott passed away. He was in Tasmania, and I think. I also feel very connected with my family back home in New Zealand, and there's an opportunity maybe to build an oven back there. So I don't know exactly like where things are going to go from here, but I feel really proud of my team to get Cherry Moon to where it is today and what they're doing, and like they're on the journey now, harnessing the fire and the fermentation, and allowing the stability in the shops for me to think about what's next.
Is there a bread or a pastry or something that you that has been on the menu for quite a while that sort of really speaks of what you've created there, like, or that it speaks of what you do?
Yeah, so we've got a fig leaf sourdough loaf of bread. When I was living in the Blue Mountains in Katoomba, I had a fig tree in my backyard. And I was thinking, like, because the fruit on it that year when I moved in wasn't really that good, but I just knew I would do something with this tree one day. I don't know what, but like, I just felt like really inspired that it was there in the backyard, like this beautiful, abundant gift. And I remember I was making bread one day at the Niagara building, and I had to run home and get something. I can't even remember what. It might have been malt or something for the bread. I just zipped home on my motorbike and saw the tree and the leaves just all blowing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to grab a few of those leaves. I could put them on my bread. And so I grabbed them, went back, shaped my bread, and went back and baked it in the morning, 4 a.m. And when I opened up the oven door, the smell coming out of that oven was like this beautiful floral sweet, like really incredible smell. Like I was just like blown away. And I remember thinking, man, if I ever have my own business, this will be my signature loaf. Like I just want to be able to make this possible. And I felt like it's just, nature was speaking to me, and somehow it ended up on that bread. And I love the feeling that, when you walk into Cherry Moon, it feels like you're stepping back in time into this old rustic general store, but we're in the city, and that leaf on that loaf of bread is like a little kiss from nature to people in the city, just to keep, reminded of that connection we always have. Yeah.
You've had such an impact on so many people that go to Cherry Moon, but has the creation of sort of your dream in a way, has it changed you and the way you approach everything?
I think somewhere like when I bake, it really brings me up. Like, I feel I love getting the music in the right zone, getting, like you're riding off whatever happened the day before. So if somebody else made that bread and that did that fire for you, like you've got to ride what they've created. And or if you've done it, then it's exciting because you're pushing. You can like if you're doing it repetitively, you're just constantly pushing the boundaries. Okay, with the heat and what you're tweaking it and fine tuning and stuff. So I don't know, like somewhere baking bread really speaks to me and inspires me. And I think it's quite a unique language I'm speaking, like, from being in like military kitchens where it's service and bang, bang, bang. And, I love that we're bringing that beingness, that sensitivity, fine-tuned way of life into cooking. And I think that's what people feel when they come to Cherry Moon. There's something else in what we do. It's not just a shop. So I think like that really, I think I remember when I was not well and I moved up to the mountains, I was like, if I'm going to be a chef, I want to do something purposeful. What is it going to be? Like, I want to keep the this craft alive. I want to inspire others. I want to train others. And I've seen my team shift when they've been on that section because they've got to overcome all that, rigid, like there's the scientific side of bread, but there's also, dropping that to just feel it as well. And I love going on that journey with my team. Yeah.
There are many people in the hospitality sector that sort of have dreams of doing their own thing or opening their own restaurant. You've done the hard yards to create Cherry Moon. Do you have any advice for someone that might be about to set on their own journey?
If the passion's deep enough and you're really feeling inspired and driven by what your heart's called, like your heart's calling, then just go give it your all. Go for it. Don't give up. Sometimes you do have to hit a point of surrender, and that's where it can actually come. Like because you've got to drop the tightness around wanting it a certain way. Like none of this happened the way that I wanted it to happen, but the journey I've had to walk to create it was exceptional, but brutal. But it's something you can't plan. So don't give up if things get hard. If your passion's really there and you feel aligned with your purpose and what you're trying to achieve, then go for it, and you'll meet the right people at the right time. And if you come across roadblocks, there'll be lessons in there. And yeah, I think, and sometimes I mess around in ideas and things that I felt really important at the time, but then it didn't happen because it wasn't right, and it wasn't the right timing, or sometimes you've got to put things aside, and because I kind of did whatever it took. Like, I wasn't worried about how much money was in my bank account for a period of time and staying on my friend's couch and just whatever I had to do, because it felt like the dream was really alive in me and I was just riding with that momentum. So, you have to be able to be adaptable and let go and also stay open. Yeah, surround yourself with inspiring people. Yeah. I think, yes, sorry. I think I listen to a lot of Prince. I love Prince so much. And there's something about his music and his energy that makes me feel like anything's possible, and like how much he gives when he performs, or just his beingness brings me alive somewhere. And I guess, if everyone's got something like that in their mind, like someone that's really inspired them, like Mike for me as well, and Joel, like those two people, just LP, all of like those guys, like I was so lucky to witness other people's creation come to life as well, and that gave me so much to strive as well.
Well, you're an absolute inspiration, and it's amazing what you've created, and what an honour to have you on the show today to share just a part of your story. Please keep in touch, Kimmy, and very much looking forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to chat with you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.